Excellent. Thanks everybody for joining us for our October 3rd, 2022 regular council meeting starting at 4 p.m. at the Civic Room at the CBRD office. I'd like to call this meeting to order and respectfully acknowledge the land on which this meeting is being conducted is the unceded territory of the Comox First Nation, the traditional keepers of this land, and thank them very much for that. I'm going to pass it over to Councillor Will Cole-Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. I have the rather sad task of reading a statement from Councillor McCollum. Try to get through this. So my mother was struck by a truck while cycling in downtown Courtenay on Sunday. The injuries were severe and she was taken to Victoria for emergency surgery and was placed in intensive care. I'm sad to say that these injuries were too severe and that she passed away. This afternoon, at this time, I'm turning all my energy towards supporting my family. I appreciate the warm wishes and kind words to the community. They mean a great deal to me and my family. We ask for privacy as we mourn her loss. With thanks, Melanie McCollum. And Mayor, I was wondering if we could just take a moment of silence to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cole-Hamilton, for those words. And I know for our council and our staff who worked very closely with Mel over the last 4 years, this news is very heavy and hard. So I appreciate everybody's support for Mel during these times. In addition to Councillor Cole-Hamilton's comments, we're also saddened to hear about the recent passing of William Moncrief, also known as Bronco, a former mayor and city councillor in Cumberland. And he was mayor and councillor for almost 40 years and was a tremendous advocate for the village. And throughout his long life, he was focused on the needs of Cumberland residents, both now and into the future. He was a visionary who never stopped working for and caring for the village of Cumberland and the entire Comox Valley. Cumberland's history will be forever connected to the name Bronco Moncrief. We send our condolences to the Bronco's family and friends and the village of Cumberland community on the loss of this legendary and unforgettable man. And with that, I think the next one is Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. This year, communities, businesses, schools, and individuals from across Canada are being asked to renew their commitment and celebrate sustainability by proclaiming October 2022 as Circular Economy Month. Zero waste approaches aim to reduce and ultimately eliminate garbage. In a circular economy, resources are never tossed, but instead are reused, recycled, and reintroduced as new products. This is done with a focus on clean energy, clean technology, and energy efficiency. The City of Courtenay commits to preserving our natural resources, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, supporting local economies, and protecting our environment.
Thanks very much, Councillor Frisch and Councillor Hillian.
Thank you, Mayor. October is also Foster Family Month. Thousands of British Columbia foster families provide alternate family care for children temporarily unable to live with their families. Foster families are an integral and valued part of the team of public and private professionals serving the children and families of British Columbia. It is a community responsibility and foster families build stronger communities. Foster families from diverse cultural backgrounds support all children and youth to maintain their cultural heritage, learn about and practice their cultural traditions, customs, and language, and to belong to their community. And we tip our hats to all the people out there who serve as foster parents. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Councillor Hillian. And finally, tomorrow night, the city of Courtenay will be honoring a very special member of our community, Lawrence Burns, who is in his 90s and over 90 years of living in the city of Courtenay, has truly become a local institution. As Courtenay's longtime fire chief, chair of the Heritage Commission, community volunteer, and sought after public speaker, spiritual advisor, storyteller, Lawrence has given back to our community in countless ways. Lawrence Awards include the Freedom of the City, the city's highest honor, as well as Distinguished Service Award from Heritage BC. Tonight, we're going to be gathering at the East Courtenay Green Space that bears his name, while this treat area of Thunder Drive has a long held name, Lawrence Burns Park. Until now, we've never had a formal dedication event with him at the site. Lawrence is a large presence in our community, but he and his family request that we keep tomorrow's night a small event. We'll be gathering with Lawrence, his family, the fire department, and the Courtenay Heritage Committee, and others who have worked directly with Lawrence over the years, with a community update to follow after the event. On behalf of the city of Courtenay and our council, we're so grateful to Lawrence for his many years of service and look forward to honoring his well-deserving, selfless, and generous man at tomorrow night's event. Oh, sorry. Yes, it's tomorrow night. That'll be Tuesday, October 4th at 6 p.m. All right. And with that, we'll get into introduction of any late items. I don't see that we have any. So with no late items, we'll get into the adoption of the minutes from September 26th. All right. Are there any errors or omissions that anybody saw in those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. All right, development services, development permit variance number 2022. Mr. Garvin.
Thank you through the mayor. Mr. Marshall's with us and we'll give a short introduction prior to council consideration.
Yes, hi, council, mayor and council. This is a variance application for 320 First Street on the southwest corner of Duncan Avenue and First Street. It's zoned residential 2B, and is approximately 531 meters squared in size. It has a long, narrow portion that is essentially unusable and for structures. And so the applicant is applying to build a single family home on the rectangular portion of the property on First Street. And they're looking to get a reduction in the side yard setback on the road side, the First Street side, from 4.5 meters to 2.36 meters. And to reduce the overall combined side yard setbacks from 4.5 meters to 3.96 meters. Staff are supportive of this application as it is an unusual lot. It is quite narrow, and it's sort of what's being proposed on the lot does meet with the character of the surrounding community and its neighbors. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Thanks very much for that. And Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. No questions, but I'm prepared to move the recommendation that council directs staff to provide a public notice to adjacent property owners and occupants and request feedback regarding development permit with variances number 2022, and that council make a decision on development permit with variances number 2022-02 at the November 21st, 2022 council meeting.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further questions or comments? I don't see any. Councillor Theos, you're good. All right. That being said, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. Next, we have financial services for the MRDT tactical plan. Councillor Cole Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I was going to move that council approve the 2023 municipal and regional district tax MRDT tactical plan as prepared by Experience Comox Valley for VI.
All right, that's been moved and seconded. Thanks for that. And Mr. Garbett.
Thank you. Through Mayor and Council, Mr. Langemeyer is going to introduce this report, and I understand we have support from the 4VI team.
That's
Alright.
correct. I'm going to introduce Tanya from 4VI. And I haven't met this fellow. But where can they present at? Perfect, right at the end there.
Yep. And you just push the button. I'll get your mic fired up for you.
And we have the slides were coming up.
Oh, probably the one closer. It's already got its mic pointed up. It's all good. We'll get her done. All right. I'm gonna. All right, and your microphone's now on, and we'll pass it over to you.
Everyone, thanks very much. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. Just want to recognize, obviously on unceded Comox First Nation land, grateful to, work and support tourism development in the area. Joined here by my colleague Tanya. I'm Callum with the 4VI team and really delighted to be able to support Experience Comox Valley with the development of this MRDT tactical plan. Next slide, please. Yeah, so just as a quick reminder, this is 1 year in our 5-year strategic plan that we developed and received support from elected level all the way down to industry. And the real focus of the next year, it'll be year 2 of our 5-year plan, and it's continuing to advance the vision and mission that we co-created with industry about a year ago. And that's really focused on having the Comox Valley recognized as a premier year-round Vancouver Island destination for outdoor culinary and cultural activities. And as an organization, we're dedicated to ensuring fiscal prudence, having research-informed destination marketing activities that are supported by stakeholders, engage our stakeholder groups, and are really trying to drive an increase in overnight stays in the Comox Valley, just to ultimately maximize the benefits to the business community and the broader community of residents. The development of the MRDT plan was fairly lengthy and had quite a bit of stakeholder input, particularly from the Tourism Advisory Committee, and just want to thank all the members of the committee for their participation and engagement through the process. We started in June, really trying to assess what the need would be for the upcoming calendar year. Analyzed all the research and surveys that we have available to us to ensure that we're really making data-driven decisions, and then drafted the plan and had feedback from the advisory committee in early September. And as the slide deck notes, overall it was a really well-received draft, which is nice as a team working on it. But we were definitely encouraged to dig deeper when it comes to responsible travel and ensuring that we're building a sustainable and resilient tourism industry here. So in a few aspects, we kind of went back to the drawing board and doubled down on some of the sustainability initiatives that we had outlined in the plan, and also made it more clear how responsible travel and sustainability was a focus that goes across all of our tactics. So grateful for the TAC for encouraging us to push, a little bit further with regards to responsible travel, and you would have seen that incorporated in the plan. And then, last but not least, we had the advisory committee approve the current version of the plan towards the end of September. Next slide, please. So a few objectives I'll run through quickly. First of all, increase revenue from visitation. And that for us is really focused on generating leads for businesses. General ads for the Valley, may be positive, but we know that we can demonstrate our value as an organization when there are, clicks online to businesses and the cash register rings. So that is always a focus for us. Second is managing growth and benefits, and that's really through seasonal and geographic dispersion. We know that there's times of year where we can welcome additional visitors to the Valley. They'll have an amazing experience. They'll support the community and support businesses. But we really want to be focused when we decide, what time of year to drive increased demand and then where to send it to, and really looking to disperse visitors geographically in the region and then also on a seasonal basis. Next, increasing the competitiveness of the Valley. And that's really, focused on improving the visitor experience. And then most importantly, from my perspective, is increased collaboration among stakeholders. And we know that when our industry and our communities work together, we can really promote the Comox Valley as a whole much more effectively than individual set of communities that aren't collaborating. But thankfully, highly collaborative environment here in the Valley, and really just trying to focus on that Comox Valley wide, working together messaging. And last but not least, supporting sustainable tourism initiatives and activities. For us, that's really a balance of amplifying really great work that local tourism businesses are doing already, showcasing early adopters and those who are really taking the lead in this space. And then the other side of it is to also provide a pathway for businesses. We know that the vast majority of tourism businesses are interested in maximizing the benefits they bring to community and mitigating the challenges. But the challenging part for them is knowing exactly what to do. So our focus in the plan, as you'll see, is to outline a path where we can support operators in increasing the positive benefits that flow from their business and from the industry in general. And lastly, from a sustainability perspective, the Vancouver Island region recently became certified by the Responsible Tourism Institute, a European-based global organization that it's called the Biosphere certification. And we are working across the island to build a network of communities that are working to advance the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. It's an area of really great alignment for the Comox Valley to be involved. And it also creates significant opportunity for businesses to become certified themselves. And I'll pass things over to my colleague, Tanya, now.
Hello. As Callan mentioned, my name is Tanya. I am the Comox Valley Marketing Coordinator here with Experience Comox Valley and 4VI. And I'm just going to run through some of the tactics that are under the category of marketing and promotion. Most of these shouldn't be a big surprise. So promotional strategies do include the online and social media advertising, including our website, which just recently launched as a new rebuild. We also have two primary social media platforms with Instagram and Facebook. We want to develop an email marketing sales funnel direct to consumer with an engaged audience that receives e-newsletters with things promoting timely messaging for when to travel here. Also engaging stakeholders in Comox Valley marketing initiatives and measuring success by the conversions to those stakeholder websites, and traditional campaigns including print ads, TV, radio. Next slide. So as I mentioned, our new website has recently launched just 2 weeks ago. It is optimized for conversion to stakeholder websites, and it does include free website listings. As you can kind of see there, I know it's small, but an example of the Air Force Museum of what the business listing can look like. We are currently still adding new listings and encouraging tourism and tourism related businesses to complete the form and fill out so that we can really build this website. It does also include a new events calendar feature, which was something that the community stakeholders, residents and visitors all said it was something that they wanted to have, so that there was a centralized location to see what's happening when that people can potentially plan their trips around when to come here. And that's another free thing that local businesses, community groups can submit their event to. And as I mentioned, we will continue to update, improve, and build upon this website. Next. Also our visual consumer assets. So images, videos, and also written content. We do want to continue to build that, building a database that has visual assets that align with our brand as well as the Destination BC brand. And that's shareable to local tourism stakeholders. We want to also help them as well if they can use our images that we've gathered to promote travel as well as their own businesses, as long as it's for marketing purposes. And what's really important to us too is having a diverse representation of travelers within those visual assets, and aligning with sustainable and responsible travel messaging. Next. For media advertising and production, again, as I mentioned, there's the traditional print television, and on the digital side, email marketing, paid search ads, paid social display, and third-party advertising. And we want to make sure that we're really targeting the audiences that we want, so those right fit consumers. We know which EQ types come here, as well as the key activities through our various perceptions research and other surveys that we've collected. So just really making sure that we're targeting that right fit audience for the best conversion. Next. And then for social media organic, as I mentioned, our two main channels are Instagram and Facebook. So we now have moved to a user-generated content, which is great because it's real visitors and locals sharing their stories and experiences. So people who are seeing this are being told the story from like real people. We have daily posts of new content and respond to questions, comments about the destination. So making sure that we're engaged with our followers, as well as increasing our followers, and then just in general, amplifying stakeholder content and events. So we can share through our news stories, but also through our daily posts as well. Next. And then lastly, partnership marketing. So this means participating with the Destination BC consortiums, amplifying messaging through their engaged audiences that they already have. Some of the key ones that we've identified here in the Valley are Ahoy BC, BC Ale Trail, Golf VI, and Ride Island. And then also a partnership with the Comox Valley Airport. So making sure that we're increasing awareness and education around direct flight options and marketing those inbound passengers, from the Alberta market, but also downtown Vancouver and other flight options. Next.
All right, now just to round things out, in terms of destination and product, development, we're really looking to try to, support the continued evolution of the industry here in the Valley with the next set of tactics. Next slide, please. So first of all, from a research perspective, conducting visitor experience surveys, understanding, who's coming here, what are their trip motivators, how much are they spending? Think of it as the very, kind of basics that help us to, drive our decision making. And the visitor intercept survey, an opportunity to work with Comox Valley Airport and the Visitor Center. And that, once again, is intercepting visitors and trying to understand their travel motivations, where they're coming from and their overall satisfaction with the area, and really excited to be able to, further leverage that great relationship with the airport to capture inbound travelers. Next slide. In terms of experience development and training, the focus here is really on supporting business development that is mindful of the environment and culture and residents here, increasing industry awareness of the UN Sustainable Development Goals and how they can be a really great way to take a look at your business and find some ways to maximize the benefits to the community. And as I mentioned before, this piece is all about creating a pathway for businesses here and providing support to them with respect to sustainable tourism development. Next slide. We, at more of a DMO level, are also going to be engaging, trying to understand how we as an organization can advance the UN Sustainable Development Goals locally. Lots of opportunities with Immigration Services Society and other partners in the community that, for me, I think I put in a category of non-traditional or unusual partners in a tourism context, but many areas of overlap and great ways for us to work together to benefit the community. So we're going to start with a planning process called Decade of Action, and it's really focused on identifying, which goals the organization can help advance through our work, and determining some ways to measure that over the course of a 10-year period. And last but not least, wanting to continue to develop content that celebrates businesses that are advancing the SDGs in their work. Next slide. Events are hugely important to the region and will continue to support events, either the creation of new ones or enhancing events that exist already. And that'll be through a funding incentive, which will help community groups and stakeholders develop new ideas. And there'll be some more to come on this tactic specifically in the near future. Next slide. Next slide again. So in terms of visitor servicing, continue to operate the Vancouver Island Visitor Center year-round, Tuesdays to Saturdays, with mobile visitor servicing opportunities in the summer in Courtenay, Cumberland, and Comox. The real focus of the mobile visitor servicing is to intercept visitors where they are. Research always suggests that if you can, meet with visitors when they're in a downtown area, you can encourage them to stay longer and spend more money and maximize benefit versus an off-site, visitor center location, which is a little bit more challenging sometimes to directly tie into, increased business activity. We'll continue to advertise, having advertising opportunities for stakeholders, the gift shop featuring local goods, and also using the visitor center team as an opportunity to support industry training on visitor servicing, and that to be focused on front of house staff. Next slide. And yeah, I believe this is the last piece in terms of online accommodation platform revenue. That's collected, as you'll recall, from platforms like Airbnb, VRBO, et cetera. And that is directed towards affordable housing initiatives. And a few details there on the slide around submitting that. But we are in the process now of just finalizing a document that kind of showcases what other communities in the Vancouver Island region and a few examples from farther afield in BC are doing with the funds, perhaps to provide a bit of inspiration for consideration. But in the meantime, it is certainly acceptable to accrue those revenues in a dedicated housing fund until there's enough to do something meaningful with. And next slide. Perfect. That's the end. So happy to take any questions if time permits, and grateful for the opportunity again. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks very much for that. That was a great explanation. And I see that we have some lights on. I'm going to start with, I believe Councillor Theos had his hand up first. So I'll start with Councillor Theos.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for that presentation. Actually, I was very impressed with the presentation. And the fact that tourism is a major economic driver in not only our community, every community, and any way we can actually enhance that through arts, cultural, sport, and recreation activity, I believe that is nothing but a win for our community. Can I ask you, what I didn't notice there, and it may be there, do you happen to have a mapping system or a wayfinding system so people that come to your websites may be able to find parks, recreations, trails, facilities, restaurants, food and beverage, retail, etc.?
Hi, yeah, actually, that is something that has been identified as a need for the community. So it will be coming in the form of flat maps, but also we're looking at options to integrate it into the new website as well, an actual filterable interactive map. So look for that in the near future.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Councillor Theos. And next I have Councillor, I'm looking around here. Warren.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you so much for the presentation. Every time you folks come here, I'm just so thrilled. I rub my hands with great glee. It's nice to have that reception, I hope. Yeah, I was really pleasantly surprised to see that the folks on your TAC team are actually pushing for more sustainable practice, which is awesome, rather than a pushback. So good for you for how you've promoted that, and they've obviously found that there's great benefit to them, and obviously to the whole community to have that approach. So a couple items. The first one is around housing. I'm wondering if there are any conversations around housing in these meetings. I was just reading some stats the last few days around, well, we obviously know that many service industries and others in our community are struggling to have staff, and the number one reason is often housing. They can't find a place to live, and I'm sure that filters through all aspects of the tourism business. So that's one thing. I just wondered if there was any discussion about housing and looking at that, or how there could be partnerships around that. And just to finish off that point, I know, I believe it's, is it Wells Manning Park has now done provision of housing for their employees and all kinds of other services for the folks that work there. So that's my first question. And then I have another. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Great question. Housing definitely comes up at the end of the advisory committee meetings. We, kind of officially bring the meeting to the end and then have an opportunity for a roundtable discussion. And, the challenge in finding, qualified staff is always, top of mind right now in the tourism sector and many others. And housing is definitely one of the challenges driving that. But there definitely hasn't been any substantial conversation among the advisory committee in terms of use of OAP funds or anything like that. More general musings around the challenges from a staffing and labor perspective.
Mm-hmm. That might be something that as the model develops, might come forward. And then just around the visitor center, some positive things there. I know that myself and others had brought up the whole mobile aspect. I think just when you were starting to talk about that, I was curious if that's a certain number of days in each community during those kind of busier times. I mean, I know I've traveled a fair amount, and there's usually a kiosk in a city center that everybody goes to for their tickets to wherever and information. So just a little bit of, if you could give me a bit of info about that. And I had also brought up way back, I mean, this is going way back before you folks, but in terms of the gift shop was carrying some things that were, like stuffed moose and stuff that you don't have around here. And also items that were not made locally or even really had that much connection to local. So I just wondered if that, I did hear you stress that it was, the gift shop was more local. So I just wondered if you could tell me a bit about that as well. Thanks.
Let you take that one, Ted.
So first off, with the mobile visiting kiosk that we had, they did primarily focus on the busier days. So like Wednesdays to Sundays, being in the downtown cores of those three communities. If you were at Comox Marina Park, you might have seen that's the one place where we have like the really big unit that stays there locked up. And then the other ones were more of a pop-up display. So, and we are looking at furthering getting more resources for them for next year, including a branded tent for days where it's either really sunny or really rainy. So yeah, expect to see them more. That is a little bit contingent as well on the staffing that we have available. We do get Canada Summer Jobs Grant funds our summer staff up at the visitor center. So the number of days that we can be in those communities is going to depend on the amount of staff that we're able to hire each summer. And then in terms of, sorry, can you remember the next question?
The gift shop.
Oh, the gift shop. Yes, sorry.
And items being sold.
Yeah, there are still a number of really small, like a couple of random like keychain and items that we inherited from when Seabeds ran it, but it is now, I believe, 100% or very close to 100% of local consignment goods that are from local companies or Vancouver Island based companies, but many of them are here, right here in the Comox Valley.
That's really great to hear. And is there some kind of way that's kind of adjudicated or whatever in terms of people getting their things into? Is there rotation so that many different folks have an opportunity to have their goods in there, or how does that work to get your swag into the visitor center?
No, that's a really good question. That would actually be something I might have to defer to our visitor servicing manager. If anybody is curious, can contact either the visitor center directly or our colleague Dino, and he would probably be able to better answer that. But I can also get the answer and maybe send an email to you guys as follow-up.
Yeah, I mean, it's just great if there is kind of an equitable approach to that. Great, thank you so much.
Thanks, Councillor Moore, and my apologies for being a bit discombobulated with the microphone system, but they've been acting a little squirrely, so they're not blinking and doing the things that they normally do. So that being said, next we have Councillor Helian.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. Two questions. Could you tell us a little bit about the process through which Airbnbs will become part of this service? Is it compulsory or are they required to volunteer to sign up? And just a little bit about how that process will take place.
Yeah, absolutely. So any online accommodation platform that is or short-term rental unit that's advertised through one of those major sites will be automatically collecting MRDT, and it takes place in the back end. So the actual like Airbnb proprietor might not even know because it's just kind of a seamless integration with the platform. So any short-term rental that's on a major platform in the city boundaries would be collecting and remitting. The frequency kind of changes from time to time based on when those providers remit the funds to the Ministry of Finance. So it isn't quite as regular a payment often as the more traditional fixed roof accommodation properties, but everyone is collecting it that's using one of those major platforms.
That's great to know. And I just want to acknowledge that when the Economic Development Society was looking like it was going to wrap up operations, I did have a call from at least one hotelier who was concerned that we were going to lose the MRDT, and that one of the benefits that we were going to lose was the engagement of all the online operators and the extra revenue that that would bring in that could be used for housing. And I think it's just another reason why kudos are due to city staff and to your organization for working so hard to keep this on stream and without any significant disruption as a result of the demise of the CVAD service. And I'll echo Councillor Morin in her positive comments about the approach you brought with sustainability. My one other question was if you could just comment on what sort of engagement there is with the Indigenous community, Comox First Nation, whether they're represented on the TAC, and what sort of work you're doing with them to make their culture and heritage a big part of the experience that brings people here.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'll probably start answering that one and then pass things over to Tanya. So they are actively participating in the advisory committee. They're appointed member of the advisory committee just recently, as of about 2 or 3 weeks ago, had to step down. So they will be kind of appointing a new member for the advisory committee. But to date, a really high level of engagement through their appointee on the advisory committee. As we talked about previously, the development of the new brand for Experience Comox Valley was done really co-created with the nation. So I think a very high and trusting relationship being developed with the nation. And but at the same time, I think there's still more opportunities to promote Indigenous tourism in the Comox Valley, and to also support the development of more Indigenous tourism experiences, based on the desire of Indigenous peoples here in the nation as well. And we certainly want to help amplify and support as best we can there. Tanya, I'll let you add anything else that might be relevant.
Yeah, I think you hit on almost everything there, Callum. But yeah, just to echo, we do definitely talk to them a lot and correspond with them on our projects, especially with the new branding. And if you guys have seen the new postcards that we put out there, the printed postcards, that actually has a totem that was inspired by Carver Edlund's totem design, and we got permission to be able to put that on there, which was really great. And it's really well received as well at the visitor center. But as Callum said, I think there's more opportunities out there. So we are just looking forward to working with them more.
That's great to hear. And you might notice the designs on the windows of the building here. It might be nice for you to do a feature on Indigenous art as displayed around the municipality and in various public settings, because I think we're going to be seeing more of it. And it's certainly, I think, worthy of people who come here. I have relatives in other parts of the world who often ask about what is going on in that regard, and are very much interested in the resurgence of Indigenous culture and how it's featured in our communities. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hillian, and Councillor Cole-Hamilton.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks so much for this. I'd echo the comments. I've been really pleased with the way this your campaigns are coming together and the clarity with which you're presenting them. I wanted to ask a little bit about the visitor center, and in the report it notes that there was a 210% increase versus the same time last year in in-person visits to the visitor center. And I was wondering if, besides sort of COVID winding down, whether there were other factors behind that. I guess that's my first question. And it also talks about the mobile visitor services kiosks, which strikes me as perhaps a much more accessible way for people to get information than something by the highway. And I was just wondering, there are no figures there. Do you have anywhere figures as to the number of visitors who are assisted at those mobile kiosks in the center of the communities? And it'd be interesting to compare them with, because it's hard to know what to make of Vancouver Island Visitor Center bigger as the only one that's there in terms of visitor assistance. So, and I have a third question, but I'll hold that off because two's enough to keep in your head.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you for the question, Councillor. I think the increase that we're seeing at numbers at the actual fixed route visitor center, primarily just COVID, more folks traveling, people wanting to go and have face-to-face interaction with somebody who's knowledgeable about the community, so I think that is probably the biggest factor there. I'm not sure how far back in terms of visitor center numbers we provided in the report. One thing I just wanted to mention is that every visitor center operator calculates the number of visitors in a slightly different way. So we capture visitors that are actually engaged and not just running in to use the washroom and then leave. So we have a well-determined and established method for counting those visitors now, whereas previously the numbers, it was hard to make total sense of them, and the methodology may have changed from one year to the next. So we have a really great baseline now of consistent reporting for those, especially for the formal visitor center. So I think primarily that increase is just folks are traveling and wanting to have face-to-face engagement. I'm not sure in terms of your other question, Tanya.
I don't have the up-to-date mobile servicing stats. That's an excellent question, and I will get those.
We do count.
We do count them. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, we do track them and we do count them. I just haven't gotten the report back yet for the end of summer, how those numbers looked for this year.
And the thing with the mobile visitor servicing is that you can be, really dynamic and flexible, especially when there's willing partners that are keen to host us. And the cost per conversation is much less than with a traditional fixed route visitor center. We can also, go to events and festivals, and it really just enables us to be a lot more dynamic and then bring certain types of information to certain events or festivals or races or whatnot. So the mobile servicing is a really effective and important part of our overall visitor servicing approach.
Okay, thanks, Amir. One follow-up, if that's okay. Yep. My instinct is probably that those mobile kiosks are probably more effective than the visitor center, but next time it'd be great to have just to be able to compare the numbers between the two of them. And if I recall, you were going to be doing some surveying of people, and both at the airport and at the visitor center. Are you also going to be conducting those surveys at the mobile kiosks so as to get a sort of a representative balance of the different types of okay, great. That just seems like that would provide a fuller picture then.
Yeah, and what I'm really excited about for that is getting a sense of who the inbound travelers are at the airport, as well as outbound, where are our community members going, helpful information to know. And then we'll have a sense of who's going to the actual visitor center. Is it just a bathroom stop, or is it more than that? And I think we'll have a much fuller understanding of, you know, the effectiveness of different methods of visitor servicing as well, aside from the kind of experience development and marketing benefits that we can draw from the research. So yeah, we're really excited to see what comes from that.
Great. That sounds like a really great plan. I look forward to hearing the results from you next time you visit. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Cole Hamilton and Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm also really excited about the sustainable development goals, especially since it seems to really align with what we're doing at the City of Courtenay and our community plan. At this table, I'm sure everyone knows what the UN SDGs are, but in the community, you know, there are 17 of them. And some of the ones that came to mind that really apply to us are climate action, affordable and clean energy, gender equality, good health and well-being. And so thanks for making that a part of this. I have one, I think, fairly simple question, and it's more a process question. I'm wondering how the Tourism Advisory Committee and 4VI sort of engage with the local tourism businesses. If you guys communicate with them, you know, with email and how they sort of reach out to you to make sure that they're, you know, getting what they need from you.
I'll let you take this one, Tanya.
Yeah, definitely. We have a stakeholder e-newsletter that we send out as well. I am part of the Momentum group locally, which is the Chamber of Commerce and the Downtown Courtenay Business Improvement Association, Comox BIA and Cumberland BA. And so it's another way that we can get messaging out through their membership as well. And the Tourism Advisory Committee, one of the things that did come up at a recent meeting was their willingness and readiness to be a little bit more involved with stakeholder engagement. So that's something that we're actually currently looking at into how that's going to lay out and where their role might be in helping us outreach to some of the tourism stakeholders that maybe just aren't aware yet of, you know, some of the services we have available or who we even are at this point. As well, on top of that, some in-person sessions. So we are planning for a fall industry session probably in November, as well as an early spring kickoff session. And that will be for tourism industry stakeholders to attend workshop style as well as networking sessions. So those are just some of the ways. I do also a lot of just email, phone calls, some in-person drop-ins. So yeah, I wish I had more time in the day to do more of it because it's my favorite part of the job. But
Great. Well, thanks for that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks, Councillor Frisch and Councillor Moore. Oh.
Thank you. Just one more quick question. I was curious if what the process is around actually attracting folks here who are looking to visit a place that is following those sustainability goals. Because I know when I travel, which hasn't been for a long time because of COVID, I mean, that is something that's really important to me. And particularly if I'm going to, you know, a country somewhere that's struggling more, I want to make sure that I'm helping and not hindering and all that kind of stuff and making things worse for the place I'm visiting. So is there some kind of network, or how do you attract folks whose values really align with that?
Great question. And I wish everybody traveled like you, Councillor. So an approach that we're really moving towards is to try to get away from the really traditional demographic, you know, people who make this much in a certain area and a certain age group, and instead try to target visitors that have looking more at psychographics and values. And we can start to dial in specific consumer market segments by the first 3 digits of a postal code. So we can actually have a sense of in our key target markets, which postal codes will have travelers with a set of values that are aligned with being kinder, gentler, better guests in a general sense. It is definitely on the side of an art rather than a science right now. And it's, you know, a hot point of discussion for I think most DMOs in BC that are trying to look at this kind of new approach. So that would be, you know, one layer that we try to apply. The next is really the marketing content that we're promoting. So, you know, acknowledging territory in posts and in content, making sure that, you know, guests and prospective guests know, you know, whose territory they'll be visiting, adding in, other responsible travel themes and messaging, promoting and showcasing businesses that are making a difference. And if we curate content that is aligned with that kinder, gentler sort of traveler, then we will hopefully attract folks that that live those values when they're traveling. But as I mentioned, this sort of approach of responsible travel is quite new, and I think that this is where our investment in research becomes really important, where we can actually, through that research, dig in to see, okay, are we actually drawing visitors that have that sort of values framework that we're looking for? Is this effective? And, if so, how can we double down on it? And if not, how do we refine it a bit more? So I think it'll be a constant evolution of, monitoring the performance of this approach and make sure that it's actually, doing what we want. And then I think the final component I wanted to mention is content that's focused on folks who are already here and making sure that there's, responsible travel and messaging layered in at that level as well.
Thanks, Councillor Moore, and appreciate that. Mr. Garvin.
Thank you. You can tell from the discussion around this table that our council has been very engaged in this. And I just wanted to thank 4VI. The review of the service was really clear that effective communication and engagement was top priority, and 4VI has delivered for us. And we are very thankful for the approach that they're taking. The approach that we've been utilizing following the direction on the regional economic development function was to try and leverage our strengths, minimize or effectively use available revenues. And I think this has gone very well. The next steps around engagement are around utilization of the online revenue for affordable housing will align with our official community plan amenity objectives. And we're excited to work with 4VI staff in the development of that, as well as ministry staff. So I wanted to say thank you. It's been a great partnership. We're early in this partnership, but it's gone very well. And I wanted to acknowledge Mr. Langemeyer, as well as our support, Lisa Kilpatrick. This is currently an unassigned portfolio and we're not resourced for this. So we're doing our very best, and I think it's gone very well. So certainly some discussions that we're having following the election through our strategic planning about the future around economic development in the region. With our municipality, secondarily in the region. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Thanks for that. And thanks for all the discussion. And again, I think it is worth repeating that, we had some grand plans, I think, over the last 4 years, and then there was a little pandemic that got in the way, and our Economic Development Society itself actually was dissolved. So, some of the things that again, my expectations were we'd already have some of these things in place by the end of this term. But the fact that we didn't lose the MRDT last year, the fact that we are where we are right now, and just the positive feedback and just atmosphere that I'm getting from the hoteliers who are just really happy with the direction things are going. So I think that's something that really, again, we're set up for success right now. So I think there's a lot of, again, expectations again. So maybe the one question that I have, and this, and we talked about that November 30th deadline. Is it completely up to the TAC, or are you looking to any municipalities for any feedback in regards to that submission as well?
For the MRDT?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Oh, I got a guy right over here, Mr. Garvin.
Yeah, that is the role of the TAC. We're not coming to municipal councils that participate in this. It's our municipal council. No, that's the purpose. That's why the TAC was set up. Council endorsed the concept and how the TAC was going to operate. So thanks very much.
All right, there you go. That was easy, wasn't it? Fantastic. And I saw another light on. Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move the recommendation that council approve the 2023 municipal and regional district tax MRDT tactical plan as prepared by experienced Comox Valley 4VI.
Thanks for moving and seconding that a second time, but it was already moved.
It's already been moved?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's all
So
good.
long
Better
ago,
to
I
be
forgot.
safe than sorry. It's that's what we have all the staff here for, making sure we keep the train on the track. So that being said, we do have a motion on the floor. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thanks very much for that. Next, we have the audit service plan for the year ending December 31st, 2022. Councillor Frisch.
I'll move that council approve proceeding with the 2022 audit service plan for the year ending December 31st, 2022, as prepared by MNP LLP.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. And Mr. Garbett.
Thank you. Through Mayor and Council, Mr. Langemeier has brought forward this report with the assistance of his staff. I might have a few words of introduction.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Nice to be here once again. So the reason I'm here is to seek your approval of the audit plan for our audit year ending December 31st, 2022. And our audit will be done by MMP. They have been doing it for a number of years now. So one of the Canadian auditing standards as identified in the report is CAS 260. And that says we must talk with the people who are in charge of governance of the organization while auditing. And they're the ones who ultimately have the responsibility of approving the plan and assigning the auditor. And so that's what we're here today. MMP, as I said, has been our historical auditor. The rate of the audit, similar price to last year, it is up, but prices are rising. There's a bit more scrutiny under a refresh of an auditing standard 315. And that's to do with identifying and assessing the types of risks as standards change and risks change in this world. So with that, I would hope you would consider approving the plan. If not, I have to go back to the drawing board.
Sounds fairly straightforward. A motion has been made and Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. I always ask questions about this just to prove that I actually read it. Riveting read that it is. There is indication that it's going to be somewhat more involved this year, due in part to changes in IT, and that it's going to take more staff time to affect that. Can you comment on that at all?
I cannot comment on that very much as I wasn't here for the past ones. It seems that every audit report or planning memo I've seen from auditors always says, oh, this year it'll take longer, and it drives their rates. There's always something new to look at. It's a good sign that that's occurring, as you don't have an auditor that's just saying, hey, we're going to do exactly the same thing we did last year and everything's going to be fine.
Fair enough. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Councillor Hillian and Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And I know this comes up often as well, and that's the issue of materiality. And I thought it was about $1 million, but I see now it's 2.3 million, if I'm correct. And I think for a lot of people would think, well, that's quite large. You know, what could we miss? And I guess my question is, you know, what else are we doing as a city to sort of internally audit our processes and catch stuff that's obviously smaller than that in materiality?
That's a nice question. Materiality is a tough one because what materiality is the amount of money different than what it should be in your consolidated financial statements that would make the user, so you or staff, make a different choice because of that. You know, how much do you have to swing before it's really going to impact what's occurring? Now we have to look at with regard to this financial statements, the city as a whole, all services in one. When we're talking about what we're doing to catch things much smaller than that, the city has internal controls, and you'll notice the auditors are coming in late October, and what they do is they test our internal controls by running like a transaction through our controls and testing to see if all the checks are done. You know, has an appropriate manager reviewed it? Has that transaction been coded to the right GL? Is there budget in that GL to be done? And that's done at a very small level. And so when you test the controls and you can rely on the controls of the small transactions going through, you can rely that the some of those transactions can be trusted. And so that's how you get to that bigger materiality number. An auditor won't just look at every transaction over $2.3 million as a test. They'll look down to the small ones.
Okay, thanks for that.
All right, and I don't see any further questions, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. You don't have to come up with a new plan, so there you go. Fantastic. All right. That being said, we'll move into council reports and we'll start with Councillor Cole Hamilton.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to speak for a minute about the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation and the Spirit Walk that happened. I think most people on council were able to be there for part of the day and to take the tour. And there were some really appreciate Andy Everson's opening remarks, and then also the organizers, the route that they'd set through downtown with 8 different informational posters about residential schools and the history pertaining to them. And I had the opportunity to speak to one of the organizers afterwards and just say that I thought it'd be wonderful if we could keep these posters up a little bit longer than that one day. And she was interested in that, and but she said she was quite busy. So I said, I'd be happy to do the tour again and go ask each of the businesses if they keep them up. And so as it stands, all of those posters will be there through the end of the Thanksgiving Day weekend. And there will be a PDF of the map, which we're sending to local businesses so that people can just stop in and pick one up and do a self-guided tour over the course of this next week. It was beautiful during that one day to see sort of the band of orange kind of winding its way through downtown. And this will just allow that educational dimension just to last a little bit longer than the one day. Thanks.
Thanks much, Councillor Cole Hamilton. And next we have Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'll just quickly recap my attendance at the Move to Electric show and shine that happened on Sunday. It was actually a pretty awesome event because it had people in the valley who have owned electric cars for some time and other electric forms of transit like e-bikes, electric scooters, electric skateboards to come out and share their experience with other people and help them, decide how they can get into electrified transportation. Thanks.
So thanks for that. And Councillor Hillian.
Thank you, Mayor. And along with, I believe, Councillors Morin and Cole Hamilton, I attended the Evergreen Seniors Open House last week. And I know it will surprise many of you, but I'm actually a member of the Evergreen Seniors, joined this past summer. $27 for a yearly membership when I joined. I think it's going up to $35 for next year, but an amazing organization. And I think the open house and the gracious tour that was led by Janet, the coordinator, gave us a new insight into just what exactly the center means to all the people who attend, some of the facilities issues they have with the Philberg Center. And we certainly recommended that they make some type of presentation and provide some type of orientation to new councils at the start of the term so that we can be aware of the liaison and the facilities issues that they brought to the fore. I also attended the Spirit Walk on the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, and I was overjoyed to see the number of our citizens who turned out, both young and old and in between. And I hope that that's an indication that both as a community and as a nation that we are learning so much more about the injustices of the past and the need to continually be working to make sure that we have learned the lessons and are making the redress that's required. So I'm very pleased to be part of that event. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hillian. And Councillor Morin.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't really have anything to add. I attended those 3 events that were mentioned. I thought it was kind of neat at the EV show that there were some young folks down there very interested in the electric scooters and things like that. So I think I liked that there were, so many different modes that you can utilize. Not everybody has lot of money for a electric vehicle, but may be able to purchase an e-bike or even a scooter. And I know that someone on a regular scooter beat me into town up from Ryan Hill not that long ago. I was driving, they were on a regular scooter, not an electric one, and beat me going into Courtenay. So it might be a mode of transportation for many folks. In terms of the Evergreen Seniors, it was really neat to see a couple of my neighbors growing up who were playing in the band, just rocking it in the Evergreen band, playing the drums and the accordion. And I won't say, their age, but they're definitely in their older years and are really active and engaged. And it was extremely heartwarming to see so much joy there. And there was a comment made that they do have a theater group and they only do comedy. They said seniors generally just want comedy in later life. So it was just lovely to be there. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Moore. Councillor Theos.
I'll be passing. Thank you.
All right, thanks for that. And it's been a fairly busy week. Last Tuesday, I traveled with Mayor-elect minions down to Duncan with members of the executive of the Coalition to End Homelessness to visit the village down there, which is a purpose-built CCAN housing for those that would otherwise be unhoused. And it was a great way to see how municipalities are doing things, kind of dragging the province along, I think. It's something that our council had recommended years ago and didn't get much uptick from BC Housing, but it was great to see. Probably one of the biggest things, and I think it could be learned from any of these types of facilities, is that part of actually staying there, part of the sort of the social contract is that you have to go out and do community work within a couple hundred meters of the space. So it just helps build that relationship and really help address stigma and things that people might otherwise have. So it was an amazing trip and really happy to have been there. Evergreen Seniors Open House I was able to attend that. They almost didn't let me in. You have to be 55 actually to join. I've got a little ways to go apparently, but they let me in given the fact that I have taught courses there. And I think to the councillor's points earlier, just to see the vibrancy and how excited people are just to do stuff. And it was just amazing to see how packed it was for the hour or so that I was there. It was great to see. Also attended the CR Lawyers fundraiser for the Head Injury Society and Immigrant Welcome Center. And again, two great organizations that had funds raised for them. So big thanks to our community for stepping up for that. Again, the Spirit Walk was just amazing to see our community come out and support. And again, the posters that were put up in the businesses really to help that learning for those who might be looking to see how can they actually build reconciliation into their own lives. So and on Saturday night, I attended the Courtenay Volunteer Fire Department banquet dinner, which hasn't happened since the pandemic started back in 2020. The 68th annual awards, and it was great to get out there. And I thanked the firefighters for the service that they do on behalf of the city and our citizens. So I really appreciated that. And then today at 4 o'clock, I started my last council meeting in this term. So I just want to take this moment to thank our council members and the staff for everything. And with that, we'll move on to the next thing. We have council resolutions. Thanks from the gallery. Thanks, Aaron. If somebody would like to move Councillor Frisch.
I'll move that council cancel the October 17th, 2022 regular council meeting.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments regarding that? Councillor Theos, I see you look like you're good. All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes. I guess now it's officially our last meeting of the term. Sorry for preempting that. And for first and second readings, if somebody would like to go through these. Councillor Hillian.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'll move that council give first and second reading to zoning amendment bylaw 3054 1077 Piercy Avenue to create a new CD 36 zone and rezone the subject property to CD 36. And that council directs staff to schedule and advertise a statutory public hearing for zoning amendment bylaw number 3054.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Mr. Garbutt.
Thank you. Through Mayor and Council, I want to just start by identifying as envisioned in our official community plan and council has seen for the past 3 or 4 meetings, we have a series of applications that promote intensification and residential redevelopment inside our core. This application represents another example of that. Mr. Marshall will give a short overview of this application.
Thank you. Through your worship and members of council. This is a sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So this is a rezoning application for 1077 Percy Avenue. The existing zoning is R2, residential 2, and the proposed zoning is a new comprehensive development zone that we've called CD 36. The subject property is 2,376 meters squared, or about 0.6 acres in area, and currently contains a house, shop, and detached garage located across from the City of Courtenay's Public Works yard between 10th Street and Cumberland Road. To facilitate the construction of the 2 adjoining 2-story apartment buildings together comprising 24 rental residential units, this application was made and reviewed previous to the July 25th, 2022 adoption of the official community plan. So there was originally an official community plan amendment along with this application, but our new official community plan does designate and allow for this type of development. A comprehensive development zone is proposed because there's no existing zone that matches what is being proposed in this particular development. The new official community plan designates the subject property urban residential, which encourages this type of infill, higher density development within serviced areas. The regional growth strategy supports directing the region's growth to core settlement areas, which include the City of Courtenay. The strategy continues by supporting infill and intensification of existing areas over development in fringe areas or outside the core settlement centers. So the proposal itself is made up of 2 2-story buildings with 24 rental units. They have 4 studio apartments, 5 1-bedrooms, and 15 2-bedrooms, primarily with 1 bathroom. And the reason for the 1 bathroom with the 2 bedrooms is that it makes the apartments more affordable. Increases in density while maintaining the low density character of the area. So they've done a very interesting job architecturally of creating a very similar style and height and look of the buildings that match the sort of surrounding buildings in the area. They have a central linear courtyard, which will be shared with the residents, and that courtyard has an arch at the front. So you come off of Percy Avenue and you go through the arch into the development. If you walk straight through the development, you get to the parking at the back. And at the back of the property is a lane, and the parking is proposed to be accessed via the lane behind the property. They are proposing 20 parking spaces for the 24 units. They are proposing 36 bicycle spaces, some secure and some for visitors. They did a public information meeting or did a public information mail out. And the main points of concern with the actual development was the density of the development, that there wouldn't be, that there isn't enough parking being proposed, that the lane will be overutilized, and that there'll be transient traffic or squatters on the lane. So the staff are of the opinion that this is a type of development that it fits well with the new official community plan. It's higher density infill development, close to public transit, close to all the amenities and things, you know, in the area. So although it does have a lower parking standard than what would normally be required, they do have a traffic study that identifies that development of this type would require 10 to 18 parking spaces. So they are actually providing more than what the traffic engineers have recommended. And they have also, the traffic engineers also identified that there were no safety concerns with this particular laneway in terms of access out onto the main streets. Lastly, the applicant will be upgrading the lane to city standard from the road back to this property. So with that, staff are recommending first and second reading and the public hearing be set for November 21st.
All right, thanks for that. And first up for questions, we have Councillor Cole Hamilton.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Chris, for the presentation. I'm just looking at the feedback, and not a lot of feedback. There were two negative comments and one positive one. And the two folks who had concerns seemed to be focused a lot on the fact the parking lot would be accessed through the alleyway rather than from the street. And I just see in the staff report, it says, after confirming the safety of laneway use, staff support the proposed bylaw compliant configuration. I was wondering if you just add a little detail and give me a sense of why it was that the possibility of having the parking at the front and using Piercy Road directly rather than the alleyway, why the configuration you felt was best as it is currently, feeding onto the alley rather than Piercy.
Through your worship, to the rest of council, thanks for the question. So the new official community plan does recommend that access to developments that have a rear lane come off of the rear lane. Having the development up to the street frontage is more pedestrian friendly and oriented. And it fits in the character of the neighboring uses. So, you know, if you set this development back a third, you know, back onto, or 2/3 back onto the property with the parking out in front, it's not very attractive, but it also doesn't fit with the character of the surrounding area. The applicant has done a lot of work making the units sort of match, like I say, sort of a single family or townhouse style of development. It's only 2 stories, so it's not, you know, overshadowing the neighboring uses. And although I certainly, and I did walk the lane with the person who was concerned about the use of the laneway, and I certainly see where that person's coming from in terms of, at this point in time, it is a very quiet, natural, almost kind of space. So I certainly can see why they would want to see this space retained that way. But for the sort of functionality of the site and the look of the site, I think the frontage on Piercy Street makes more sense. And you know, they'll be able to upgrade the laneway. They're talking about peak exits and entrances at AM and PM times being around 9 to 11 cars. So it's not like this is going to be a highway. You know, even at the worst case scenario, you're looking at, you know, 10 cars leaving in the morning and 11 or so coming back at night, kind of thing. So
Okay, thanks for the clarity on that. And I can see that in the larger context, it just does make sense to have things aligned the way they are. And certainly appreciate you making the time to go walk the alley with one of the two folks who were concerned about that. Anyway, I see a lot to support with this development, and we'll be voting in favor. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks so much. And Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. First of all, I'm pleased to see this site being developed. To say that it's been a dreadful eyesore in the community would be an understatement. And condolences to the neighbors who put up with it through this time. I think it's good that this goes to public hearing, and the next council will get the opportunity to hear presentations, I'm assuming, from the individuals who've expressed concern in writing. I think what we're talking about here is a trade-off. The density and the housing that's provided on the one hand is a positive thing. The loss of the space that laneway currently represents to me detracts from the project, and I think it's important that the citizens who actually live there on Stewart Avenue with the laneway behind their homes have the opportunity to express at the public hearing the significance of that for them. So look forward hopefully to being at the table to hear that, but we'll see what the population as a whole has to say about that. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Hillian. And Councillor Frisch.
And thanks, Mayor. I'm really excited to see this. I'd like to commend the proponents for putting something together that obviously fits in with our community plan. I find it extremely eclectic and diverse, which I think is a good way to go with developments these days. I like the variety of sizes. And it also fits in with traffic demand management. So this will really help us reach our goals with keeping traffic under control in the community, as well as community building, like we just heard about, with having the front of the property used as a more pleasant looking space that's attractive to pedestrians and the like. So look forward to seeing this move ahead. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Frisch. And Councillor Moore.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I agree with the comments. I think this is a welcome addition, and the design looks really great. Much like other folks have said, the laneway aspect, I'm hoping that maybe there can be something done around that. I note that when we have these kind of developments, we obviously feel that need for density. I know when we have townhouses and things like that, we often encourage developers to bring forward green spaces, common spaces, playgrounds, etc., which they often do. This one doesn't have a lot of that per se. There's that central courtyard, I guess, which is inside. I'm assuming that's a little bit of a gathering spot. So I think just when we are doing density and we're losing that green space, well, in this case, it's not like there's a ton of green space there in terms of trees and stuff, but I think we need to incorporate that in as best that we can, so that we're not just adding housing, despite how attractive it is and how well designed it is, that we really listen to the neighbors. So I like Councillor Hillian's point around hoping that that folks will come out to the public hearing and present their views and ideas around all of that. And maybe there's something that can be done around maintaining some of that positive aspect of this little corner here. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Moore, for those comments. And Councillor Theos, I just wondered if you had any comments that you wanted to make, or if you're good.
No, I'm fine. Thanks for asking, though.
All right. That being said, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. Next, we got zoning amendment bylaw 3058 for third reading and adoption. Councillor Frisch.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move that zoning amendment bylaw number 3058 2022 for 440 13th Street pass third reading and be finally adopted.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments regarding this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. Next, we have zoning amendment bylaw 3066 for 2022. And Councillor Cole Hamilton.
Thank you. So I'll move that that council give third reading and final adoption to zoning amendment bylaw number 3066, 2022.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments regarding this bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. And finally, for adoption, we have prevention of nuisance amendment bylaw 3079. And Councillor Moore.
Great, thank you, Mayor. I move that council adopt the Prevention of Public Nuisances Amendment Bylaw number 3079, 2022.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments regarding this? Seeing none. Councillor Theos, you put your hand up.
Yeah, I
Appreciate
have my hand up there too. Thank you very much. In this particular regard, I have concerns with the ability to actually enforce this this bylaw. Even enforcing noise is extremely difficult and very rarely can it actually occur. We would definitely will have an extraordinary challenge to try to enforce this smoke bylaw. So I think it would be a resource. It would take up a tremendous amount of resources, and we would not be able to get the rewards that we were looking for. So I wouldn't want to see the resources going into that from my perspective. I would rather see it continuing into the education and other programs that may actually deter that smoke from happening in the first place from a proactive standpoint. So I will be voting against this. Thank you.
And Councillor Theos, what are the other things other than education? You said education and other things. What would the other things be?
But the other things, as in terms of exchanges, etc. So, using the proper dried wood rather than the wood that has moisture to it, and the other programs that could be out and available, with people doing some further research.
Thanks for that, Councillor Frisch.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to, maybe I could ask staff, but I remember the last time we talked about this, which was just a week ago, we did talk about this nuisance bylaw amendment being followed up with a program for education and staff to help enforce it. So maybe you could just clarify what we plan on doing.
Thanks, Councillor Frisch. Mr. Garber.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Councillor Frisch, the staff report that was attached for these bylaws for reading outlined a series of actions. I would say enforcement and ticketing by bylaw staff is our least desirable outcome, and we have the proposal in accordance with the big picture plan from the region is to focus on good practice with respect to burning itself, and then follow up with information to people who've been identified having burning issues, and enforcement would be our last resort.
Okay, thanks for that. That's what I recall as well. Wonderful.
Yes, so it's a lot more focus on compliance for sure. So thanks for that. Okay, we've got a motion on the floor. Oh yeah. Oh, sorry, Mr. Frisch.
Someone in our gallery wants to speak, and I'm not sure on protocol for that. But well, let us figure it out here for a second.
Your bylaw says that if it's germane to the question and you would like to allow it, then we can allow it to you.
Right, up
So-
to me specifically or council as a vote?
I think it's the mayor specifically. Do you want me to check?
Well, I would just put in a vote for maybe a time limited, a minute or two, if somebody had something that wanted to let us know about this amendment. If you think it's worthwhile.
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna let Madam Clerk here just confirm what the rules are so we don't contravene our own rules.
May only be heard when council so resolves, so it doesn't require a resolution.
Okay, so you're making a motion?
Yeah, I
Councillor Frisch?
would resolve that we allow up to 2 minutes for this person to present us with some information.
It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Garber, did you want to speak to it?
I can watch the time for you.
You're going to be my timer. Perfect. I don't have to open up my timer. Awesome. That being said, I'm gonna call the question then, just so that we do see if we have consent. All those in favor? And that looks, I didn't see Councillor Theos, but everybody here, Councillor Theos, so yeah, so we have a unanimous to let you speak. So you'll get 2 minutes. If you wouldn't mind coming, just a microphone where Councillor Hillian is. Otherwise, nobody will be able to hear you. Oh, hey, hang on 2 seconds. We're just confirming things. Do we need a name?
We wouldn't necessarily put in the minutes, but you may like to.
Yeah, so maybe just introduce yourself, and then when your microphone turns red, your 2 minutes will start. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
My name is Serena Patterson, and yeah, I read today that this was on the docket. I really I want to recognize the health concerns regarding wood smoke and what you're trying to do here, and I feel really bad because I think that the people behind this, I have your signs on my lawn, and we have the same values. But I have some concerns about the implementation of the bylaw as it's proposed. As it's proposed, it reads as though it moves straight to punitive measures for a rather ill-defined infraction, without a time for public preparation and without consideration of the range of wood smoke exposures. My first concern is that the immediate implementation of the proposed bylaw would penalize those people who've not had warning and may not have the means to shift heating sources now at the beginning of winter. Because wood stoves are the most economical source of heat locally, many people use this as their primary heat source. And many of these include renters and people on low incomes who have no other heat source. I think that the proposed bylaw would disproportionately affect low-income residents. Second, the definition of nuisance smoke as any smoke that is visible and bothers the neighbors and interferes with their enjoyment of property is so inclusive that if the neighbors object to any visible smoke, even high above the ground, this could amount to a de facto ban on heating with wood. There is a difference between the output of a well-managed up-to-date stove, which does produce visible smoke, usually white, and with some water vapor for about 10 to 30 minutes during its startup time, versus a poorly managed or damaged stove that pours out large quantities of gray smoke. Uh-oh.
That's your 2 minutes.
Okay. Can I have one more? I just have one point.
Okay, one more point.
Ethically grown and harvested wood for heat use is a sustainable family industry in the Comox Valley. And this would impact that. So I support the spirit of the law, but I do have some suggestions for maybe tweaking definitions.
We're probably not going to be able to take tweaks at this point in time. But I'll pass it over to Mr. Garbutt here.
Thank you. I appreciate council's need or desire to hear. This wasn't advertised as an opportunity for people to provide additional input. There's been considerable discussion in the community and feedback to council on this. So I'd recommend considering the matter in front of you. Staff had provided through the comprehensive staff report in response to questions our approach to many of the issues that are being raised here. The bylaw is based on good practice, well researched, and as discussed previously, where this will be engaged very thoughtfully in the community by your staff. And legal action would come back to council for authorization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor, and I appreciate hearing from one of our residents on this. Most of these points were in fact raised at our last council meeting when we had the opportunity for the full report, including the possibility of adverse impacts on people with low income. It was stressed by staff that, as mentioned by our CAO, that enforcement would be an absolute last resort. that all other measures would be taken, including advising people of the opportunity for a better practice, for conversion possibilities. And for me, I'm comfortable knowing the approach of our bylaw staff to other bylaw enforcement matters, that would in fact be the standard that would be applied when it comes to this. And I just met somebody on the doorstep today who emphasized that when he goes out in the morning, he can tell right away whether people are burning or not because he has respiratory issues. And you know, we've had comprehensive research done in relation to this and presentations by our medical health officer that have basically demonstrated the need for this action. There's certainly no intent to apply these measures in a punitive way. And I think that for me, I trust that our staff will in fact adhere to that as has been stated. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Hillian. And Councillor Warren. I can do it again.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, Councillor Hillian basically covered it all. I just wanted to reiterate that we did definitely bring up the comment around folks who are lower income and the impact that could have. And I know that our staff did provide clarification that if it was a rental situation, as an example, excuse me, the ticket, excuse me, would go to the resident, but there would be a process where, I mean, perhaps, I don't know if Ms. O'Connell could repeat what she said last time, because it was very good in terms of understanding how the process would work, if there's a way to say that in a summarized way in terms of the landlord versus the person in the home. And
you must be magic, because you said her name and she appeared. We're going to
Perfect.
pin her
and she will not bumble through it the way I am. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Moore.
Thanks, Council. So happy to go over it again, but as Councillor Moran is correct, it's not the intention to disproportionately target or impact individuals who may be burning materials due to their socioeconomic status. Honestly, the bylaw service staff, they don't instantly go to tickets. In the case of a nuisance violation, which this is the bylaw that this regulation would be covered under, it really has to be a persistent state in order to be a cause of nuisance. And it's the existence of that persistent state that would give us time to work with the resident on identifying alternative heating sources for them, or burning sources that may be more appropriate. When we go to look at issuing a ticket, it's really when there's an egregious continuation of non-compliance with the bylaw. So a persistent nuisance state where we're not seeing the resident taking action to try and remedy the situation. So it's not if there is smoke, there are fines. It's if there is smoke that is persistent, causing a nuisance over time that does not appear to be approached through a mitigation strategy, that's when you'd see tickets be issued. So it's correct. We would do whatever we can to gain volunteer compliance and hope to be able to work with all of our residents to do so.
Thanks, Ms. O'Connell, for that clarification. Really appreciate it. And I think one of the other comments was around the actual source wood, and that's a conversation I've had with the patio and hearth folks for over 5 years now. They've even come back to council to say that they are interested in creating a wood lot that would create certified seasoned wood that was below a certain moisture content, but to this date that doesn't exist, unfortunately. But again, this is really for moving towards compliance. Councillor Frisch.
Thanks, Mayor. So Ms. O'Connell did outline what sounds like a policy around enforcement, and it may apply to other parts of bylaw enforcement. Can you just help us understand where that sort of language and policy would live for staff, if obviously not in this particular bylaw itself?
Sure. Thanks, Councillor Frisch. So under the bylaw enforcement policy, it does talk about the fact that the city seeks to gain voluntary compliance first and foremost. And then the rest of the policy or the approach to looking at a nuisance, it really comes under the definition of a nuisance, which is the persistence of a circumstance that is infringing on an adjacent property's enjoyment of their space. So it's the persistence component of it. So it's a kind of a combination of both the bylaw enforcement policy as well as what is deemed to be a nuisance versus a single infraction of a bylaw, which would be more obvious. So something like littering or fire in a public park or things like that, where it's an action has taken place that's clearly a violation versus something that happens over time.
Thank you for that. And yeah, appreciate it.
All right, so we've had pretty good discussion on this. I think we've asked lots of questions. Thanks for the comments from the gallery. And with that, we'll call a question. All those in favor? Any opposed? And we have Councillor Theos opposed. All right, and municipal ticket amendment bylaw 3080. Councillor Frisch.
Move that council adopt the municipal ticket information amendment bylaw number 3080/2022.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments regarding the ticket information amendment bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Next, we have the nuisance abatement and cost recovery bylaw 3081. Councillor Frisch.
I'll move that council adopt the nuisance abatement and cost recovery amendment bylaw number 3081/2022.
That's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments regarding the cost recovery? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. Next, we have the solid waste amendment bylaw 3083. Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. I move that council adopt the City of Courtenay refuse materials collection, removal and regulation bylaw number 3083.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments regarding the solid waste amendment bylaw 3083? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously. And next we have solid waste fees and charges amendment bylaw 3084. Back to Councillor Frisch.
Move that council adopt the City of Courtenay fees and charges amendment bylaw number 3084.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments regarding solid waste fees and charges amendment bylaw 3084? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that again passes unanimously. And we are adjourned. All right, last meeting of the term.